Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ETAuto. We have just heard the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman present the Union budget for the year. And now, to break down the budget to understand its impact on the automotive and manufacturing sectors, we have this comprehensive panel of experts from across the industry. So, without much ado, I would like to thank you all for joining in and begin and just jump into the discussion by talking about the key highlights of the budget and then move on to the missed opportunities for this year in the second part of the session. So, first of all, I would like to bring you in Mr. Shekhar. You're the consulting editor at ET Manufacturing. We have heard the government has been bullish on its manufacturing mission, and we saw that about a revision in classification criteria for MSMEs as well. MSMEs are the backbone of India's economy, and our country has over 1 crore registered MSMEs. The FM has talked of higher investment limits, credit support, and growth incentives for the sector. So tell us, we'll begin from here. Like, how do you see this shaping up for the next year?
Hi, Shubhangi. It is rightly said the MSME has been the backbone for the manufacturing industry. And just to give some background, overall, if you see outside India, almost many of the countries they showed the slowdown in manufacturing. They reported the manufacturing slowdown. But in India, in last year, it has the India reported a very robust manufacturing performance. In fact, the index of industrial production in several months that showed the growth, which showed the increase in IIP. So we have that advantage of good domestic demand, as well as workforce talent and overall the spending of infrastructure from the government. So that is giving a lot of boost to the manufacturing activities. And as MSME is the MSME is the backbone of the manufacturing industry. There are lots of activities happening in the MSME sector also. And due to this tax rationalization, as well as the other benefits of, for example, the finance minister has also announced the this national manufacturing mission, which I personally like that initiative. That will give boost to a lot of activities, not only in MSME sector, because that mission is supposed to cover all the small, medium, and large industries. So it will strengthen the activities of the entire manufacturing supply chain, from the small scale industry to the large scale industry. So this will definitely give boost to the manufacturing activities in the MSME sector. And when the MSME sector grows, that definitely gives boost to the entire manufacturing activity of the country. So that's my take on it.
Very rightly said and summed up. We have also been joined by Mr. Sandeep Singh, who's the managing director at Tata Hitachi Construction Machinery. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Singh. We have seen in the budget, the FM announced a continued allocation of 11 lakh crore in the capital expenditure. So, how do you see the entire sector here moving up with this
Yeah,
going forward? What were the top key highlights for you in the budget, probably?
yeah. So thank you very much. I think budget is quite positive. Government has always been putting more and more thrust on infrastructure development because we are in that space. We manufacture and supply construction equipment and solutions. So one of the major thrust area of government has been road construction, port, multi-mode connectivity, mining. So the capex continues to be very good. This year they have increased the capex by 10%, which you just mentioned, 11.2 lakh crore. In fact, they are effective capex, means central capex plus grant to the state has gone up to 15.5 lakh crore, which is a positive sign. The most important thing is that how do they spend this money? How do they allocate? Many times we feel that in the first half of the year the allocation is not so good, but I believe if government allocate these funds, it will be really very good. And this leads to increase in steel production, cement production. It helps MSMEs. Overall, I think this budget is very positive. The reforms, what they are doing on MSME is very positive. They are looking at improvement in agriculture production. That is again a very positive initiative by the government. So these are my general comments on the budget. Yeah.
Specifically, how do you see the road construction and the logistics industry moving forward with this?
So logistics, the logistic cost in our country is close to 13 to 14%. Government wants to bring it down to 8 to 9%. So therefore, connectivity by road, port, and railway is very, very important. So that is where multi-mode connectivity initiative government announced few years back, and they have now allocated enough funds for that. So the awarding of contracts for particularly for road is very, very important. And I think that in the last few months we have seen they have increased the award, though they were slow in the first half, but in the second half they have improved, which will continue in the coming year. I think connectivity will get better. The logistic cost should go down over a period of time. It's very, very important since India is attracting a lot of investment in manufacturing, and logistic cost is one of the major
Right.
hurdle in that. So I think that will help in increasing or improving the productivity and competitiveness of India. Yeah.
Got it. So we have some top highlights, and moving on. There's a big relief in the FM announcing that no income tax is payable for annual income of up to 12 lakh under the new tax regime. So I would like to come to Saurabh Agarwal, who's a partner at EY here. Saurabh, what do you think? The disposable income in the hands of the people, and what does this mean for the two-wheeler and even the car buyers for India?
So, Subhangi, if you look at what the government has been focusing around in this budget, and it was clearly evident, is to increase the disposable income in the hands of the end assessee, which means in turns there will be effect of buying on two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and small car segment at least. At the same time, the entire theme was to move from the old regime of taxation in the hands of an individual to the new tax regime by way of giving this 12 lakh a rebate over there, wherein up to 12 lakh you don't need to pay any taxes. So all type of consumer, as the FM said, is gaining as a part of the taxpayer. So up to 12 lakh there is a saving of around 80,000, then up to 18 lakh 70,000, and more than, and going up to around 25 lakh it is a saving of 1 lakh 10,000. All these savings in the hands of the individual like you and me and the general masses will lead to a rise in the consumption of automobile.
Right. I would also like our auto experts, Mr. Murli Gopalan, the consulting editor at ETAuto, and Sumantra Barua, the editor of technology at ETAuto, to jump in and let us know how do you see the segment, specifically the passenger vehicle, two wheelers, and commercial vehicles being affected and impacted with the budget announcements.
Yeah, hi Shivangi, and hello everyone. I think the most important takeaway, purely from a demand perspective, is the so-called aspect of having more income in your hands. So I think purely from a demand perspective, barring all the breaks that are given to infrastructure and the electric vehicle ecosystem, I think the reality of having more income and hopefully translating into greater consumption, encouraging to go in better, will augur well for I think the entry level two wheelers and the entry level car segment. For a while, Maruti has also been saying the entry level sales have been flagging, but that in part has also been due to the higher ticket price of cars and two wheelers. With regulations, there have been add on safety features and emission related equipment which have high prices. Now, if income levels now can keep pace with those high prices, then I do see a certain revival coming in the entry level space, definitely for two wheelers and cars, which in turn will augur well for the likes of Hero, Maruti, and players who have their strengths in the entry space. And I think in any case, the commercial vehicle segment, the pickups are doing well already, thanks to quick commerce and all that. And I think perhaps it's a little too early in the day to figure out what's going to happen to them in HCV segment as a result of the budget. And in any case, a lot of these benefits, I think, the change in sentiment will begin percolating in over the next couple of months. It's not as if people are just going to jump out their chairs and say, hey, I've got more money, I'm going to buy. Because the reality will start sinking in. So I see a certain momentum happening in these categories over the next 3 to 4 months.
That's true. The commuter segment and the two wheelers and the entry level passenger vehicles are anyway struggling. We should see some respite there. And Mr. Sumantra, you want to add here?
Yeah, thanks, Shubhangi, and welcome everyone, for to this webinar. Really great to have you all. Three things, if I were to just look at it, really appeal to me. One, of course, as a beneficiary myself, being a part of the middle class, that income tax slab revision, of course. But otherwise, one, immediate, and two, in the mid to long term, impact that I see. One is, of course, the exemption of rare earth scrap material, which would bode well for the EV ecosystem. Primarily, let's say players like Log9 Materials. Will look forward to hearing from Pankaj more on that. But I think it will bode well for building a good local EV ecosystem. But what is again very heartening to see is the focus on skilling. Now the thing is, okay, the main thing is that everyone will have to walk the talk. So, assuming that that will happen, we think that this announcement of setting up five centers of excellence for skilling, with global expertise and partnerships, to equip the youth of for the industry of tomorrow, that is very heartening to see. And at the bottom of it all, and which is again very very crucial, provided again I say that I stress on this part that it gets the due importance and the sustained effort towards that which is the Atal tinkering schemes, Atal tinkering labs, the announcement. So to quote the FM, she said that the objective is to cultivate the spirit of curiosity and innovation and foster a scientific temper among young minds. And India is a young country, no, and it's huge population. So today's kids of the school and colleges will become tomorrow's, will shape the future of the nation tomorrow. And we all know where India stands when it comes to its status in the global economy and its projected growth, including the automotive industry. And there, and specifically in the context of automotive industry, we are striving to become at par with the global leaders when it comes to the emerging EV industry. And then we have the component industry also shining as a shining star of the automotive industry ecosystem. So I think all this bodes well for larger good. Of course, automotive industry will be a beneficiary, and so will other segments. So which is what I think from my perspective, these are the key takeaways. And yes, again, what matters most is to walk the talk. The made announcements are good, welcome announcements, and much needed also in some cases. Now the thing is to execute these plans in a very timely and well thought out manner.
Absolutely. We are still waiting for a detailed document here and we'll get back with more details. But until now, as you mentioned, one big announcement was on the critical minerals. So, EV is the name of the game in the auto industry right now. And I would like to bring in Mr. Vinny Mehta, who's the Director General of the industry body Automotive Component Manufacturers Association. Mr. Mehta, one of the key announcements, as Mr. Barua just mentioned, has been that 35 additional goods for EV battery manufacturing will be added to the list of exempted capital goods.
Right.
And in the yesterday's economic survey, also we just read, India currently sources 75% of lithium-ion batteries from China.
Right.
So help us break down the FM statement here and how significant is this move? Like, what does this really mean for the push towards local manufacturing of lithium-ion batteries in India?
Thank you, Shubhangi, for having me and all the friends here. A very good afternoon to all of you. And before I get into that, I must say, first of all, we come from the auto component manufacturing industry, and there's a huge underlying focus in the entire budget on the industry becoming globally competitive from a manufacturing perspective. And also, what's very, very heartening is that 70% of our membership is small and medium enterprises. So there's a huge sort of push given to the MSMEs with the definition changing and all the criteria, the investment going 2.5 times and the turnover being twice. So, and coming to the specific point that you mentioned, yes, definitely. Again, there was a huge thrust in the budget on sustainability. Okay, we've talked about clean tech manufacturing, and that's what the finance minister mentioned. And I think therein, she talked about the allowing or enabling manufacturing for batteries, for mobile phones, and also for EVs, and also enabling it through allowing of capital goods for them, and also for the raw material, the critical raw material. There's a critical raw material mission that the report yesterday talked about, and the economic survey talked about, with 34,000 crores of endowment. And all of this goes towards creating a very resilient, a very robust, sustainable manufacturing ecosystem. And currently, the entire industry is transitioning from, let me say, from an automotive industry to an EV industry or a mobility industry, and you need to create an ecosystem. And yes, it's a fact that a whole lot of critical raw materials today, whether it's nickel, cobalt, lithium, they all are, in some sense, China has a huge dominance over them. So we also need to create relationships with like-minded nations who would help us. And I guess these are the steps in the direction, in some sense, making us more independent, making the supply chain more resilient. So I think, as I said, the entire essence of the budget from a manufacturing perspective has been to create, make in India for the world. And as Sumantra said, the government seems to be walking the talk. So that's very, very heartening. And also, I think somewhere everybody is talking about, more money in the hands of the people for two-wheelers or entry-level cars. But do not forget, there's a huge capital expenditure that's happening, and a lot of that will go in road construction, and that will help the MSCV industries. And also, again, roads, ports, all these help in better logistics. And again, that's going to help the manufacturing industry and become the country more competitive. So a great budget in that sense.
Yeah, you just mentioned about walking the talk. So, as a component industry, like how far are we from realizing this dream of localization in EV
So we
manufacturing?
are a very, so on the EV front, okay, again, you see the localization is also a function of the scale of the industry. And say today, it's a very two-wheeler led story, if I may say so. So you're probably a little over 1 million two-wheelers, EVs, compared to a 22 million ICE EVs. The scale is still very, very small. Look at the pass cars or PV industry, just about more than 100,000 units, or probably it'll become 200,000 when we close this year, okay, compared to a 5 million EVs, 5 million ICE vehicles that we are manufacturing. So the scale is a little too small, but I think we are in the right direction. They say that 5% of a volume is a tipping point when you start getting into the S curve. From a two-wheelers perspective, we're already there. From a pass cars perspective, today we are around 2.5%. By 26, it is expected that we'll be 5% EVs in the entire PV space. And that's where, again, you will see a hockey stick curve. In the commercial vehicle, of course, in the small commercial vehicle, some of the 0.8% is the penetration when it comes to EV. So it's a little distant away, and that's not necessarily a very cost-effective solution when you look at the CV industry. But from a two-wheeler and a pass car perspective, 26 onwards, you will see a big spike coming up in the EV space, and things will start falling in place. But for things start falling in place, we are doing the right things now. So, you got to enable manufacturing, keep all the ingredients ready, and then lo and behold, you take off when things get right. Yeah.
So, I may conclude that the road is still long, but the early signs are good. Probably we're still there.
We are
And
well begin. We are well begin, and again, the government is walking the talk on the road. So that's
got it. And I would like to bring in Mr. Pankaj Sharma, who's a co-founder and director of Longline Materials here. Mr. Pankaj, thanks for joining in. You're a part of the industry here. Longline Material provides batteries and energy storage solutions. So tell us, how do you see for the budget for the EV ecosystem as a whole, and what do you expect further?
I think great move. India is definitely selecting to become cleaner and greener with its EV revolution that we're seeing. There's no doubt that out of these 6 or 7 members who are in this room, almost half of them would be touching an EV on a daily basis. They would be driving or using an EV. And without knowing that, I can make that comment here. So what we're seeing is the urban early adopters selecting for a very nice, simple way of moving from point A to point B without burning fossil fuel. And I think what this budget is doing is pointing in the right direction, like Vinny talked about it. I think what we need to do to grab the EV opportunity is to make EVs domestically. And 50% of what goes inside an electric vehicle by the value is the battery. Solving for indigenization of the battery is the road through which we can truly get to our independence from this coal-based or fossil fuel-based. There are a few steps that you need to figure out. The first thing is we need to solve for the materials that go inside these lithium-ion cells. India is in a way blessed to have some of its own deposits, but it'll take some time before we make use of that. And till that time, we need to import. And I think these 35 items, I'm looking forward to understanding them more deeply. But I think most of the raw material that actually go inside making those lithium-ion cells, like lithium, cobalt, nickel, magnesium, there are some chemicals and polymers that we need to kind of assemble a lithium-ion cell. And I think as these become, an exempted list, we can now produce lithium-ion cells at a price point which would be competitive enough when it comes to imported one. Mind you, manufacturing lithium-ion cells is a very, very expensive activity. The capex and the infrastructure and the manufacturing that goes out is close to about 1,000 crore rupees per 1 gigawatt hour. So you're asking for a very large investment from industry and government to happen. And one of the things that post that capex investment that puts a lot of pressure on lithium-ion cell manufacturers is access to material at a price point. And securing that is the first step. I think that's a great thing. I'm pretty sure that out of those lists, there'll be some critical electronic component that go into something called the battery management system. These are the brains of the battery. They control the entire lithium-ion cells. And some of them are very long lead times. And then what happens is, in a erratic supply chain, you tend to order more than what you need. So I think once you have this kind of a comfort with this kind of a budget, I think people can plan their supply chain much better. I am actually waiting for the first 1 gigawatt hour of cell production happen in India. And I think that will be the first day of independence for India to have its own genuine lithium-ion cell.
Exactly, absolutely. The independence in the EV industry, EV manufacturing, that's right. We'll now come back to the agriculture part. There's agriculture, the FMS stated, is a big, important, major engine for the economy here. And specific measures have been announced with respect to the rural economy as well. Mr. Gopalan, I would like to bring you in here for the rural economy, and the FM has also announced initiatives for the PM Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana. You talked about the disposable income and how it's going to affect and impact the two-wheeler and the entry-level car segment. Help us understand the tractor segment, how this could be impacted with these initiatives.
Well, I think, frankly, a massive rural outlay beyond just tractors, which of course is very good news. I think again it means very good news again, and demand picking up in the entry-level space, even in rural India, because for the last few months, even the economic surveys pointed out that it's rural India that's pretty much firing on all key cylinders, and there's a muted aspect in urban. So that's one part. Beyond tractors, why I believe that even cars and two-wheelers will benefit with this generous outlay happening in rural. And clearly, I think it bodes well for tractors. I mean, because I think the tractor industry, barring a blip last year, I mean, it's been growing well, and of course, a whole lot of other critical aspects come in, which is eventually, which can dampen sentiments like the reality of global warming, erratic weather, which in turn can, ruin incomes, and beyond that, just assurance of an MSP to farmers so that they get what they rightfully deserve from the crops they make. And when I speak to my associates, my friends in the tractor sector, they're quite upbeat. And I think this budget will be a further shot in the arm in tractors. I can see the likes of Mahindra Swaraj Combine, Traffian, right across the country, these things happening. And more importantly, right now, there's also reality within the rural segment that we need greater mechanization, because even while farmers are getting the thing, you have a new generation that's moving away from farming. So the show in a way goes on. It bodes well for the tractor segment, and I think it bodes well for the overall mobility space. And when you also look at better roads. The whole thing is just a sum of everything coming nicely together. And if this means, again, increasing the mojo that's already beginning to come into rural India, I think it all goes well.
That's right. The whole thing is a sum of everything. And Mr. Bariwa, I would like to bring you in because you have been following up on the technology and innovation for very long. So there was a push on innovation as well. There is 20,000 crore allocated for R&D. Deep Tech Fund of funds will be explored to catalyze the next generation of startups for the private sector led research and innovation as well. The FM has said that. So there's research and innovation going on in different areas here in the automotive sector as well. So help us understand how beneficial could this be for the sector?
Uh, in a straight answer to that question is a very significant contribution it can make because the industry, as we all know, is becoming increasingly disruptive, and therefore innovation is becoming the name of the game. Now, innovation is something which is easier said than done, and for it to really take shape, for new innovations of even global scale or even domestic scale, not to mention the global scale, for them to emerge, that conducive environment has to be there. The adequate support has to be there in terms of efforts towards R&D kind of investment, but also this whole culture or and conducive environment, which will have a bigger and a long-term play. But having said that, this what is also heartening to see is this flow focus on clean tech for what the FM says, climate friendly development. And as we all know, India has set a goal of 2070 to achieve carbon neutrality. And towards that, while we are also talking about the, let's say, for example, the 35 additional capital goods for EV battery manufacturing, which will getting exempted. The FM also talked about electrolyzers and things like that. And because we all know, apart from EV, hydrogen is technology is another focus area for the government, and so is flex fuel. And this year, it may be, no, I mean, some of us may already be aware that April 1st is going to be the date where the E20, which in other the ethanol 20% blend in gasoline, that regulation will kick in, and this will be the first major step towards in eventual goal of flex fuel. So the government is looking at a bouquet of clean tech technologies in its drive towards a sustainable future, and of course, in the process, bring down its big fat fuel import bill significantly. So therefore, all these initiatives will be more than welcome. And as I said, good to see the focus on not only on EV related stuff, but the non EV related new clean technologies also, and also the focus on setting up these centers of excellence for skilling, because technology development is one thing, the skilled workforce to take care of that, to let's say, if you look at the end consumer also, to get the after sales support and things like that, and also to manufacture them. Now, you need a skilled workforce. So it is all very, very key components in the overall scheme of things, and all of them deserve equal kind of focus. And the government seems to be making its effort in the right directions. But again, as I say, no, I mean, once a detailed plan is kind of revealed, then we will be in a better position to say how well we are progressing on that front. But as of now, it looks quite good, and we just hope that everything is well thought out, well consulted. The industry is also well consulted when it comes to making these decisions. The lawmakers also have to be very well informed. So for really India to take off and reach its deserving position in the coming years.
Got it, got it. So we have heard all the experts talk about the key highlights of the budget being MSMEs, manufacturing, rural economy, agriculture, EV ecosystem, the capex allotment. So now I would request each one of you to take 5 minutes each and tell us like what were the big misses of the budget? What was the industry expecting that we didn't really see in the FM's speech? I would like to begin with Mr. Sandeep here. Mr. Singh, please go ahead first.
I think, I didn't, frankly speaking, I am out of country. I have not heard, I have only read the contents of the budget. I think they are putting all uh, right blocks in place. The main pillar of the industry, whether it is agriculture, MSMEs, manufacturing, infrastructure, they are taking right decision. The only thing which I felt in our industry, which is infrastructure industry, long-term financing, though they have announced many times that they will make it available, we do not see that getting due attention from the government. Even today, most of the contractors who are building infrastructure are facing crunch in terms of funds availability at the right interest rate or availability of funds for long-term projects. I'm sure it would be there in their budget, but we haven't seen that. We haven't seen the quantum of amount what they have allocated for that. So that is the only thing which I couldn't see in the contents of the budget as of now. Yeah.
Okay, okay. From the component sector, Mr. Mehta, you want to add something?
Shubhangi, you'll be very amused to know we did not have any budget ask this time. Okay, it's rather strange coming from an industry body, and a very active and a vocal industry body. And what the budget has become demystified, and a lot of the budget is a statement of account. Okay, and the government endowments have been happening through the year, and you've been monitoring them. We had the PME Drive scheme, the FAME 2 got converted into FAME 2 plus 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 is now PME Drive. The PLI schemes are already there. So we do not have much to ask for, to be very, very honest. The issues that we have are more related to the GST, okay, in the sense that, in the EV space, the components are at a higher, some of the components are at a higher rate of duty than the EVs, because the EVs are at 5% GST, and the components, the GST rate is 18 and 28%. So that leads to an overflow, but that is not a subject of the budget, okay? In that sense, the budget has done full justice. They ticked all the right boxes, whether it was agriculture, whether it was manufacturing, whether it is export, whether it is skilling, whether it is R&D, whether it was the people. So yeah, I think we don't have an ask today, to be very, very honest. So there you are.
That's good to know. Good to see the optimism from such a big part of the industry coming in. And I hope the GST Council listens to you definitely. And thank you for joining us, Mr.
Yeah,
Mehta. I
that's
understand
good.
you have a meeting now. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you
Yes.
so much for having me. Take care. God bless.
Thanks. Mr. Saurabh, what's your take on this? What were the big misses in the budget this time?
So I think one of the thought of the industry was that there will be change on the duty rate on the component side, more from a EV perspective, so that the localization can increase. And one of the thought was that there will be a clear roadmap which will be set up for 3 to 5 years time, which has been the ask of the industry for quite long. That in any sunrise sector, which includes EV and maybe the battery ecosystem, which is the lithium ion cell ecosystem, the clear roadmap should have been there as to how the rate of duties will change over a period of time on raw material, intermediaries, and finished goods. And what I'm highlighting is the ecosystem part of it, not just the finished goods part of it, which something was the roadmap was not talked about. Second thing which I foresee as a clear thing when we talk about, so government has launched the scheme to promote manufacturing of electric passenger cars. The budget allocation under 25-26, if you look at the expenditure budget for Ministry of Heavy Industries, it's only 12 crores, which either means that either the scheme is not picking up, or there is a need. If I have to, you can say articulate, I'll put it like that. There's a need for a PLI 2.0 version for the automotive sector, so that it allows the startup ecosystem, which the FM was talking about, that they are playing a key role in the growth of the country. So a lot of startups are coming up which were not eligible for the PLI, creating a competitive disadvantage for them as far as the old players in the markets are concerned. Similarly, even for the new entrants, this particular competitive disadvantage of someone having a PLI, someone not having a PLI is from 13% to 18%, which is a big, you can say, incumbent for them. and that too in such a market which is a very price sensitive market. So PLI 2.0, if the government would have been talking about it or laying a roadmap in this budget, it would have been a welcome step. The other part which I foresee is that when we talk about the holistic around the critical mineral piece, they have laid down or they have given exemptions to the various critical minerals such as cobalt, zinc, lead, etc. But when it comes to a lot of other chemicals, or you can say chemistries which are going into the battery ecosystem, which is say LiPF6, LFP, etc., the duty rates have remained same. And there is a requirement for the changes in cathode, electrode, etc., which was somewhere missing in this particular budget.
Got it. Got it. So I think that should be worked upon. And I would like Mr. There is, yes, I would like Mr. Shekhar to join in because we've heard a lot on the MSME and manufacturing part. There has been a big boost there. So, did you expect something more that was the essential thing in the budget, but we didn't hear it from the FM speech?
As Mr. Mehta also pointed out that whatever the required boxes are there is already been ticked, and but there are still something which has been like discussed for many long years. First is the rationalization of the taxes. MSAB has been putting forward the request to the government, but somehow it's not happening because I was just interacting with a few of the manufacturers in this and Intex exhibitions, foreign manufacturers. So according to them, if they want to start a manufacturing plant in manufacturing facility in India, they still is not feeling it's a viable option for them. They still prefer to import those machines to India for the domestic market. So this rationalization of taxes should be taken care of. Second thing, the PLI scheme, Mr. Agarwal already mentioned that it should be across the sectors. It's like some sectors are having the PLI scheme, they are getting the benefits out of that. They are getting the investments on that. But other industries which may be supplied to that industry, they don't have the PLI benefit. So this needs to be taken care of across the supplier value chain. And then once we have this PLI scheme for across the sectors, of course, government has to take consideration of which sector is suitable for that. Then it will become like a exact innovative growth engine for boosting the Indian manufacturing. Another thing is which I was talking to the industry was the GST simplification. MSME is still struggling with a lot of things in GST. Some sectors they are not still clear on the GST, which part of GST they fall under. So all these things, if we take care of, if the government takes care of, then probably it will give a lot of boost to the manufacturing industry. But overall, budget this year has taken care of many other things as compared to last year. I personally feel this budget is much more beneficial for the industry.
Yeah, so two common takeaways from Mr. Shekhar and Saurabh's misses from the budget have been the rationalization of taxes and the PLI benefits. And the GST, I hope the GST Council takes care of that. Now, I'll would request Mr. Gopalan to come in and share his viewpoints on the same.
Shivangi, thanks. The thing is, I think, as Vinny so rightly said, there are other initiatives that also constantly keep happening beyond the budget. And over the years, I think the budget has just become this massive, larger than life kind of a template. But beyond that, initiatives keep happening, like you so rightly said, initiatives on electric, the PMI, e-mobility scheme, and the like. But I think what I think should help the industry going forward is that the GST kind of the levy structure, I think should be a little more rationalized. There's been a persistent demand, especially from the CNG space, for instance, that if electric gets all the soaps, and we are also putting our best foot forward in having cleaner alternatives like CNG, we also need the brakes. So that's something the GST Council should really perhaps contemplate. I do know associations have been telling the government that's something that really needs to be done. And I think where again I would advocate a note of caution is the fact that obviously you don't expect the budget to take it up, but overall for the industry that we live in a globalized world. So even when we talk about global supply chain systems, when we talk about uncertainty around, you're talking about massive upheavals right now happening across Europe and the United States, where the US doesn't really, I mean, it's clearly sounded out that issues on emissions really don't matter. walking out of Copa. Europe is having its own set of problems with the respective governments, kind of constantly going back and forth on the electric deadline. Now, how all that impacts India also remains to be seen, because you can't say that we'll operate on one part of the world while the world goes another. You can't do that when you're on a globalized system. So, how those dynamics pan out, what kind of pressures they bring on manufacturers as a result. Because almost everyone you talk to, the one thing they want, especially, all companies, be it Indian or overseas, is that we need a steady policy program. We don't need ad hoc measures. So, if India can tread on that path, and emissions will continue to be a challenge, because occasionally if the key capital in a country suddenly the air gets toxic and you then ban a certain degree of cars, then things don't work. Product, everything goes for a toss. So I think all this is beyond the budget. Of course, like I said, the budget effectively is a kind of an annual account where you say what's happening, and beyond that, some announcements, especially for like today for me, the biggest has been, like I told you, the middle class tax exemption part, because that will bring the true fire back into the economy. But beyond that, I think one should be on guard with and accept the reality that there's massive VUCA, there's massive volatility, and therefore India just should be a little wary and take one step at a time.
Right, thanks for that. Two big takeaways from what you said for me has been one is the global economy, how fast it is changing, and India really needs to take a stand right now and figure out where we want to see ourselves in the future. And secondly, a consistent policy path has been requested by the industry for many, many years now, because a lot of years and time goes into the research and innovation and investment goes into that. So, a clear path would help the industry makers as well. Mr. Barua, what do you have to add to this with specifically with your focus on the auto industry? What were the big misses?
Well, I wouldn't say a miss per se, but because as some of the other speakers also rightly mentioned, that the budget is more of a statement of accounts, and therefore, and a lot of the industry-specific announcements are made outside of the purview of the budget, PLI, and the other, the FAME 2 now, PME drive, to name a few. We expect those to have some more announcements. But having said that, in the budget, if there's some kind of a hint towards what we can expect, I think that would have given some more confidence to the industry in terms of drawing their overall investment and technology roadmap, which is very crucial, because no, it's going to be a long-term story, and in industry, as we all know, work on not only huge investments but also huge lead times. So that has to be, there's some clarity and some confidence boosting measures, announcements. I think union budget is a good opportunity to give that and to take a cue from what Saurabh mentioned, the PLI. Maybe there's a need for a PLI 2.0, a well thought out PLI 2.0, because some of the players, including some global companies, having really trying to tap India opportunity because of the other kind of uncertainties elsewhere in their home markets like Europe and all. India becomes a more critical part of their overall strategy. So they want to enhance the investment in India, tap the opportunity, do make in India, and make in India for the world as well. So if India really, the government wants to make position India as a globally competitive base for design, make, and make in India and export to the world. I think there's a good argument to get those players also who do not originate from India but see India as a great base for their sustainable future, and thereby making the necessary investment. So some kind of announcements on those lines could have been really great to give them a boost of confidence booster. But yes, we hope. Let's see. Outside of the purview of the union budget, there could be some announcements. But what is again heartening to see is the focus on clean tech, as I mentioned, and it's very necessary, because since we are talking about the need for well thought out, sustainable policies in the current scenario, imagine how critical it will be for the coming in the future, because now from diesel, gasoline, and maybe CNG, now we are going to talk about different propulsion systems, alternative fuels, and things like that. So all of them would require well thought out, well laid out well consulted policies and with a very long term perspective. So it's going to be a challenge for sure. But the more kind of stakeholders are included in terms of designing devising these policies, the better it will be not only for the industry but for the country as a whole.
Right, a clear pathway to multi-fuel technology, and I agree. India can be a base for engineering, design, and whatnot for the world because we do have skilled manpower, young talent, and frugal engineering is a big, big positive.
Yeah, and if you look at it, the GCCs, the global competence centers, global capability centers, or both for OEMs and tier ones, they are kind of mushrooming in a way, and they are doing some very critical stuff which are getting deployed in advanced markets elsewhere. So that also kind of endorses the engineering talent, the quality of engineering talent in India, which the global industry wants to tap more and more. So I think the future is definitely bright for India as a not only as a production base but also as an engineering and designing base. So I think any policy interventions which kind of contribute to this environment is only welcome.
Mr. Sharma, I would like to bring you in next, but allow me a little time to just introduce Ms. Shraddha Suri Marwa, the president of ACMA, who's just joined us. Thank you, Ms. Marwa, for joining us. I understand you were busy and occupied with something urgent that came up. So we were actually discussing the hits and misses for the budget. So I would like you to briefly share with us how has been the budget for the automotive industry and the component in particularly, and what was the big miss that you must have noticed in the the FM speech?
So thank you for having me, and apologies. I had a commitment elsewhere. So a couple of things. The budget has actually been good for us because we feel that it's forward-looking and it's growth-centric for sure, with a focus on innovation. So the areas in the for the auto component is the thrust on MSMEs, which has been big. And for us, they're a driver for our economic growth and, of course, for the nation's economic growth. Then also the Make in India clean mobility that has been driven through the national manufacturing mission that has been very clearly, spelled out this time. We're focused on clean tech, EV batteries, motors, controllers, things that we've been asking for a long time. Then there's been, good work on the strengthening of the supply chain and the export competitiveness with the establishment of the Bharat Trade Net, which was mentioned this time. We believe that this will make this will lead to ease of business. There's been custom duty rationalization, which has been a long-standing ask. So especially in raw materials. So that's been good for us. So I think all in all, we are happy. And with disposable income going up, that always has an impact on the buying, on vehicle buying, and then of course then on components. So we're actually quite excited about it. So we don't see any misses at the moment.
Not at all.
We'll have to get into the details and read the budget in details. Early to say, but yeah, more or less 30,000-foot view. That's what it is.
All right, got it, got it. Mr. Sharma, what is your biggest miss? Because there has been a push on, like Ms. Marva also mentioned, on the critical minerals. You also talked about the EV battery manufacturing. So, did you expect more, or do you still await something?
I think it's more not so much from the budget part, but how the budget get consumed and get converted in this country. And I think, when you think about planting, you don't plant flowers. You plant the seed, and then you nurture it, and then the flowers will happen whenever. So you create the right environment, the right conditions. And in my opinion, budgets are like the supply source for that, that right climatic condition for the country to grow. I think that's what the budget has done is it's pointing in the right direction. These are early days for India, although we are, far ahead from most of the countries in the world at this point of time. But I think what India is trying to do is trying to establish its, the three most important stages that we have to go through. Is the step one is to solve for innovation. Once innovation is solved, then you solve for indigenization. And then once indigenization is solved, then you go for scale. And we have to do all those three things in our energy sector, lithium-ion batteries, Just look at the numbers, about 1400 terawatt hour of energy demand is what India consumed last 12 months. We spent about $132 billion to import just oil. Imagine if we can save that $132 billion. The question is, how do you do that? How do you make India completely energy independent so that we don't have to draw liquid from somewhere else, but we can make something that can store energy and deliver energy? So I think that's the journey that India is on. In my opinion, the Honorable Prime Minister's target of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030 is a great landmark towards that, where this budget is leading us to. So I think I'm super excited when I saw 20,000 crores of private sector-led R&D allocation. Let's talk about that. What the government is trying to indicate here is that we can spend all the money doing basic research, but we need to spend money in translational research, things that can be quickly converted from innovation to indigenization to scale. So I think with that kind of a capital of 20,000 crores gets fully deployed and utilized in the way it can, and policy framework is supposed to kind of get you to there. Imagine if we can develop lithium-ion cells that are more tolerant for high temperature condition like 45 degrees. Imagine if we can make our own algorithms which are powered by AI to have more accurate prediction of state of health of these batteries. These are the kind of technologies that we can develop, because India's drive cycles are very different than what it is for US or for China. Most of the technologies are built in China for the European market. And so we are kind of, we don't have solutions for us. So in my opinion, I think those 20,000 crores of private sector R&D focused capital, another 10,000 fellowships in IITs and ISCs to get the innovation going on. And then from a scale perspective, I think there's enough that India is trying to solve for through, port authorities and much better seamless import of materials like what they have done recently and announced 35 exempted items. So I think the budget is on your and my shoulder to make use of.
Got it, got it. Thanks for that detailed explanation, running us through the ask and wants of the industry and what more we can see ahead. In the paucity of time, we have already seen the top highlights and misses from all the experts. I would request each one of you to take 1 minute to sum up the entire your expectations, and what is your outlook for the next fiscal, probably for the industry. We'll begin with Mr. Sandeep Singh.
Yeah, I think fiscal deficit is under control, which is very, very important thing, which is seen in the budget. Whether decisions are or budget is being allocated in the right direction, I think FM has done a very good job. We all have given our positive views on that. So I'm looking forward to a better year, 2025, 26. Yeah.
Right. All right. Mr. Shekhar, what are your concluding remarks here?
Yeah, as I said earlier, this natural manufacturing mission, which I personally am very excited about, provided the government has to collaborate with the industry and probably make a proper framework to monitor the exact execution for successful implementation of that. Then other things which I mentioned was which was the miss of the budget is the rationalization of taxes, and then also the custom duties on the components part, which I think some of the speakers have already mentioned. Because for certain components, especially in the electronic sector, if you can see, we are still dependent on import. So that needs to be taken care of probably in the fine prints. And so overall, I feel the budget can provide a necessary boost for the manufacturing industry to attract foreign investments in manufacturing in India, and through India as a future manufacturing destination, attractive manufacturing destination for the foreign players also. So both the Make in India as well as Atmanirbhar Bharat can be successful with the budget initiatives, provided we need to see the fine prints and the execution of the activities, and also how government can collaborate with the industry to take the necessary steps and necessary steps to execute the initiatives.
Yeah, Ms. Marva, what do you look forward to in the next fiscal?
So, as I said earlier, it's a growth-centric budget. It reinforces the government's commitment to strengthening the Make in India and the design in India. You know, and as Pankaj said earlier, it has to be innovation and localization that works together, then finally scale. If we have to make, manufacturing reach the level that we want it to. So yeah, I think steps in the right direction, and the focus on the MSME actually helps because the entire value chain has to scale up for us to be successful. So we're excited about it.
If you have to share one headwind and tailwind for the component industry, specifically for the fiscal 26.
So instead of no, so as I said, tailwinds are many. I mean, as I said earlier, also. So there is no, in terms of growth is there, and so the headwinds I think are largely in terms of supply chain disruptions that we still see globally, which are a result of the geopolitical situation that exists. And I think that is something that we need to, it's beyond anybody, but it's impacting the sector immensely.
Right, got it. I'll come to you, Mr. Gopalan. We talked about, the entry-level vehicles and the demand and how it's shaping up. So, looking at the global economy and where India stands right now, what is your outlook for the fiscal 26 for the auto industry as a whole?
But India specifically, I think, like I said, the benefits of higher income and a certain feel good will start, I think, becoming apparent in my gut in Q2 and Q3 in particular, where there will be a distinct the momentum that you're seeing right now in smaller in rural India. I think there'll be a huge fillip to the entry level segment, two wheelers. There'll be I think again a generous fillip in the entry level cars and the compact SUV segment, the sub 4 meter space. And I think manufacturers are aware of this. So I think there's enormous plotting of a retail strategy happening there. So I do think Q2 and Q3 will be extremely good because the benefits of this budget will have, I think, uh, percolated down to people's pockets. And hopefully, if, like Shraddha just said, if there are no uncertainties, if the world suddenly doesn't throw up any surprises, and because everything is so volatile, everything is so uncertain, and assuming that things around are relatively peaceful, I think we are in for a reasonably good year. We are not
All
going to
right.
see the kind of massive growth we saw last fiscal, but it will be a reasonably good and a pragmatic year in terms of growth.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Barua, your concluding comments here?
Well, I was, as the speakers were talking about their sharing their perspectives, what was also crossing my mind, one of the most biggest highlight of the Union Budget 2025 was that the announcement of the tax rebate, that slab being raised up to 12 lakh, to exempt people earning up to 12 lakh from the tax bracket. Now, who would celebrate this the most? It will be the middle class of India. And that population today is estimated to be about 30% or so of the Indian population overall. And if you look at the horizon of 2047, when India will turn 100 years, and that's what is also the stated target of the Indian government to achieve the status of a developed nation or Viksit Bharat. That population size of that population is estimated to almost double, to about 61 odd percent. And in that, the share of the youth would be significant. Today, the median age is about 28 years. Now, again, drawing back to the Atal tinkering, that announcement which the FM talked about those scheme to kind of enhance or to really build a culture of curiosity and innovation in India. Imagine this. I will draw a parallel to the analogy which Pankaj shared about planting a seed and for the fruits to bear at its appropriate time. So that can be seen as a plant equivalent of planting a seed. That idea of the Atal tinkering, that scheme of encouraging youngsters to develop a mindset of curiosity and innovation. So that is, I think, a very that is the need of the hour, really from a long-term perspective. But yes, immediate thing is that the focus on clean tech is much needed because as we all know, the global environmental crisis of the scale that it has and how severe it is. So I think the automotive industry, with its share of emission in the overall emission picture, so I think the road has to be cleaner, and I think the focus on clean technology needs to be kind of enhanced here on. And what the Honorable FM mentioned today bodes, I think, bodes well for the industry. And as I would again stress on the point of really the importance of walking the talk. So I hope it will be followed with the timely and well thought out measures in terms of execution and the timeline that it will take. So I think on all this, I think the immediate future seems to be better, and depending on what else comes out in terms of policy interventions under PLI or the PME drive and the likes, I think that will also define the future of the automotive industry, and thereby its contribution to the building of India in the coming years. So I think that's what I would like to share.
Right, right. With so much of announcement happening, nothing without walking the talk here. And Mr. Sharma, just you talked comprehensively on the battery ecosystem. Any last comments here?
Yeah, I think, very, very interesting thing that I just wanted to conclude, and this is an ask that probably, we can ask on this call. Moving away from oil would require India to make its own lithium-ion cells. And to make lithium-ion cells, you have to have large investments and access to raw materials. So raw material access is something that's been solved to some degree in this budget. At least that's been declared. I think what's needed by the industry, and there are about 4 or 5 attempts in India going on to set up large-scale gigafactories to make lithium-ion cells. And most of those are actually connected to PLI. So PLI actually works towards the end of your journey when you build the entire setup and you start manufacturing, and that's where you kind of start to get the benefit of PLI. But most of the times, when large CapEx projects are required, you need perhaps lower capital cost access, and you need some very interesting policy frameworking for you to kind of do that. For example, what you need is lithium-ion cells that are being made from clean energy. Solar and wind, you can divert part of that energy that India produces and then start to manufacture lithium-ion cells that's powered by green energy. And that literally is the kind of the flywheel of creating something far more sustainable as batteries, so that when a battery is made cleanly and it's run cleanly, then the net zero effect of that technology is very high. So I think not so much for us from the budget, from the FM, but I think down the road from a policy frameworking, giving access to clean energy for gigafactory manufacturers and access to lower cost capital for setting up that large capex for gigafactories, and then PLI that comes in, and that's where probably India can solve for its own indigenized lithium-ion cells.
Right, got it. But I am very sure that's going to take a lot of time. But as you said, the early seeds are born, so that's a good sign. So I would like, on this note, I would like to thank the audience for being such patient listeners. And that is all for today. As we just heard all the experts talk about how India stands a big chance with respect to a lot of opportunities in key focus areas. But as I mentioned, more details on the budget are still awaited because of the budget document. We'll go through that. So stay tuned for a comprehensive coverage coming in from ETAuto in the days to come. And thank you. Thank you again for joining us. Thanks to our panelists for taking out your time and for your opinions as well. Thanks a lot.